Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us to the webinar today. You are in for a special treat today because we are joined by an expert in the industry, Brittany Melville. Thank you so much for joining us, Brittany.
Thanks for having me today, Stephanie.
Brittany is a cannabis retail strategist and founder at Toronto's Grown Group, and she will be telling us more about what she does in this space in a moment. Let's jump in. So as I mentioned, my name is Stephanie. I'll be hosting the webinar and I'm the marketing manager at KayaPush. And if you haven't heard of KayaPush helps dispensary owners grow and scale their operations by simplifying HR, payroll, and workforce management like scheduling and time tracking, all from one easy to use platform that's created for the cannabis space. So a bit of a secret sauce for KayaPush is that we also integrate with leading dispensary POS systems. So we offer a solution that gives you the ability to have a lot of transparency into your business, like pulling labor versus sales reports and also managing staff, payroll, or multiple locations remotely, all from the same platform. And our goal is to make things easy for dispensary owners. We want them to succeed. And that is why we're putting the spotlight on Brittany today, because she is an expert in her field and she is also here to help you succeed. So I'm going to hand it over to Brittany, and she is going to share important things that Ontario dispensary owners need to know to succeed in a competitive ecosystem. Take it away, Brittany.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Hi, everybody. My name is Brittany Melville. I am the founder of Grown Group and a cannabis retail strategist. So first off, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's attending this webinar, and thanks for Push for hosting this. So there's nothing more in my professional career that I love more than chatting with like-minded retail individuals and aspiring entrepreneurs. So a little bit about me and my background. I have 14 plus years of high volume retail experience, coupled with a background of human resource management. I began my career in cannabis after moving back home to Winnipeg, Manitoba, where I actually had the amazing opportunity of opening the first stores, cannabis retail stores in Canada. Shortly after that, I moved to Toronto to roll out the Tokyo Smokes for Ontario. In addition to brick and mortar experience, I represented the Ontario retailers as a co-chair of the OCS RAP panel, which is a retail advisory panel. That was honestly one of the most phenomenal experiences I had. During that term, I was kind of responsible and accountable for providing holistic industry-specific feedback to all the panel members, which funny enough were like C-suite positions from LPs, and I actually put myself forward and said there needs to be a retail representative on this panel because they need to represent retail. So through that relationship and that experience, I was able to network and meet so many phenomenal, inspiring people and just kind of build my relationships within this province. So I've been beyond privileged to work alongside the most amazing, inspiring, talented people in this industry. And then due to my experience in various store openings, brand development, active industry engagement, I decided to form the Grown Group as a natural next step. So a little bit about the Grown Group. So we are a team of retail strategists that focus on developing you, your brand, and your business. We provide extensive industry knowledge and experience while supporting you make the critical choices that will in turn choreograph the success and direction of your company. So our team, we leverage our experience, knowledge, relationships, and expertise to help save you time and money and open a successful shop. Skip all the trial and error that can be very costly. We focus on both new and existing stores that are in need of a deep dive into all areas of the business. And together, we aim to form a partnership that's adaptable, flexible, and can grow as you grow. We're pretty adamant on combining forces and partnerships with people that we really resonate with and have the same values and aspirations and direction. So I'm super privileged to be able to work with so many different partners that have the same values as me when it comes to retail and customer experience. Awesome. So high level, what we are going to cover today is first, how to leverage loyalty programs to increase sales. The second area is why motivating employees matters and how to do it. And third and final area before the question period would be tips on leveraging local and industry partners to succeed. All right. So there's been a lot of buzz about loyalty programs over the last year. I'm sure all of us are super familiar with the success stories behind massive loyalty programs such as Starbucks, Air Miles, Shoppers Optimum. Now that the industry is becoming pretty competitive, you've noticed cannabis retailers are starting to become a little bit more creative with how they're driving sales and customers into their stores. So over the last year or so, we've seen many dispensaries such as Fire and Flower, Tokyo Smoke, and Supret all roll out different creative types of loyalty programs. I'm not suggesting that each and every dispensary needs to consider implementing a loyalty program. However, if you are looking for a creative way to reward and lock in your guests, it may be the option for you.
Can I ask a question about this, Brittany?
Of course.
So, can you go a little bit more into what exactly a loyalty program is, what it might look like, and what some costs might be that are associated with implementing a loyalty program within a store?
Yeah, definitely. So a loyalty program at large is a retail program to attract and retain loyal customers. I've seen anything from coffee cards, like coffee punch cards that you just keep in your wallet and you're rewarded with return visits, or online, like a more engaging online, almost wallet experience where your purchases are also tracked. Communicated to via text or an email campaign. So it really kind of depends on the retailer. But examples of programs like perks that could include could be notifications when new products drop, the OCS drops, like regular drops of products. For example, last Wednesday, I think we got 150 new SKUs. And if you're a regular cannabis consumer and a product that has only a certain amount of cases that hit Ontario dropped, and there's only a specific amount of retailers that actually have that, I would want to know so I could get in line and grab it right away. You could also get notifications when prices drop, any discounts, or even like store events. All of this can be communicated through these specific loyalty programs. And in terms of cost, it really varies from how extensive your program is. So let's say you were doing something like a coffee punch card. Obviously, you would just need to pay for the design of that. And then potentially I would consider having your lawyer review. And then also the print costs associated with printing up those specific cards. Let's say you were to do a little bit more of an extensive loyalty program and leverage a platform such as Alpine IQ or Springbig, you pay with text credits. So pending how many people you have subscribed to your database and how frequently you would like to deploy text messages, you're going to pay you're going to pay based on that. It typically isn't more than a couple $100s a month. And they usually are very flexible with payment. If you negotiate like a longer term contract, they might bring your monthly fee or give you a couple text credits. They're really great platforms to leverage. Yeah.
So you mentioned something that I have another question about. You mentioned having your lawyer review, and I know cannabis is a highly regulated space. Are there any other legal considerations that you need to know when you're developing something like this if you're a store owner?
That's a really great question. You cannot do any buy one, get one. So you can't have, hey, purchase this pre roll and receive a free second pre roll, or purchase this edible and receive 50% off your beverage. And you can't do any 2-for-1 deals also. You can get creative and you can bundle, but you cannot buy one, get one. The AGCO, I know, also is reviewing loyalty programs at the moment. As far as I'm aware, there's no definite timeline as to when they'll come out with the new regulations, but it may be wise to consider not rolling out something too extensive until they do announce what the new regulations are going to be. Another thing you have to keep in mind is you can't give anything away for free. So any cannabis or cannabis accessory at all. You can give away swag items for free, which is sort of a little bit of a gray area because some of the licensed producers have swag items that also double as accessories. And another thing to be mindful of is if you are giving swag items away to your guests, it cannot be conditional on a purchase at all. So you can't say, okay, if you make a purchase today, we're going to give you this goodie bag. It technically has to be available for anybody that comes into your store. Yeah,
It's a lot to know in getting it right.
definitely.
And then in terms of, I know that, again, like a lot of regulations, how do you recommend retailers promote or advertise the loyalty programs without going into any gray areas?
Yeah, which is also a little bit of a challenge. First and foremost, word of mouth and educating your customers on the benefits of a loyalty program goes a long way. So each and every guest that enters your store, if you're offering them the loyalty program, it's going to stick. I walked into Supret at Stacked Market, and the team there is phenomenal and offered me this really cool coffee card right away with so many enticing squares on it that definitely a guest would want to return and continue purchasing. Another way is text or email campaigns. The success of email campaigns, I'm sure most people are aware, are it's the click rate isn't as high, but we've seen a lot of success in text message campaigns. Another thing you have to be mindful of, because certain cannabis affiliated verbiage does get flagged and your text messages won't send through. But what's phenomenal about Alpine IQ and Spring Big is they've tried and tested a ton of different words, and they have workarounds with this. For example, if you attach like a graphic with the word on the graphic, you can deploy the text message. So there's tons of tips and tricks to be able to advertise your loyalty programs, obviously on your social platforms and your own personal website. That's really important too. I know when you go into Fire and Flower, their platform is right front and center on their website to subscribe.
Thank you. I can't think of any other questions for that one right now.
Yeah, of course. All right. So this is one of my favorite subjects in retail. I come from a like 8-year Aritzia background, and employee motivation was something that we spoke about, and I was evaluated on in every day of my work there. So it's something I love chatting about. So we've all worked in places and in positions that we weren't motivated by and motivated to be there. The days drag on completely. You find yourself calling in sick for no reason, and you genuinely start probably despising being there and waking up and heading to work in the morning. So, personally, I truly believe that the productivity of your store depends on the motivation and drive in your team. What's challenging is a bud tender role can be very, very repetitive and challenging to motivate a team to keep doing the same thing over and over again. So it takes a really strong leadership team to be able to creatively motivate and inspire a team to excel. There's sort of two types of motivation in my experience, and the first is more of like a tangible motivation. So obviously, this is the most obvious example. It includes remuneration, holidays, benefits in the workplace, bonus structure, and then the second type of motivation would be intangible motivation. So these are more drivers that leave an employee feeling recognized and motivated to excel. So this may include like verbal, written acknowledgement of an employee's contribution, even if it's their 1 year anniversary, calling out this to the rest of the team members, anniversaries of any specific achievements, potential, maybe they graduated university, honestly, anything, just really recognizing that your people are their biggest asset, or your biggest asset, and a happy team also trickles down and it creates happy customers. Stephanie, I think we might have lost you there.
I'm back. Sorry, I heard the last bit of that. I'm not sure if you covered it or not, but I was just going to ask. I do have a lot of retailers who I've spoken with who mention that having high turnover is a challenge in their store. Do you have any insights specifically on that?
Yeah, definitely. I personally have noticed this with many retailers. It isn't uncommon when I'm reviewing resumes to see numerous of different dispensaries on any candidate's resume in a really short period of time. Obviously, COVID has definitely influenced this, but it isn't uncommon for me to see like 3 to 5 dispensaries in the last year to two on someone's resume. So I think this starts first and foremost with the ownership and leadership team. And if you don't foster a positive and motivated work environment for your employees to grow and excel and get motivated in, you'll for sure lose them to a competitor or a different industry. And they may just have a poor experience in cannabis and end up leaving the industry because of it too. So I have, which is so upsetting to me, but I've experienced with other big corp retailers being happy about turnover and saying that it's the nature of the game, and turnover just means a transition in the business, and it's a great opportunity to start fresh. But in my retail experience, turnover was one of my main KPIs, and if I was losing key team members, it was detrimental to the business, and losing great sales leaders and amazing managers is sometimes the difference of your store being successful or not. So I just found it funny that hasn't been like a focus, a trending focus in a lot of the big corp retailers, because there have been a lot of amazing people lost in certain organizations and have fallen through the cracks. What another thing I've realized just from either exit interviews or recruiting and asking questions is staff really, really value community a supportive work environment and a strong workplace culture that has the ability to grow and they can see some type of future there. It's invaluable. Obviously, competitive compensation is really important, but having a great sense of community and a growth path is super important for tons of people that want to grow and flourish in this industry.
And you cover so much in that concept as well. Are you able to even get more into the nitty gritty for our audience? Like, what specific methods do you have? Any specific methods that you use or that you'd recommend to really retain these top people?
Yeah, definitely. Again, like I mentioned, it does get challenging because the job is somewhat repetitive. But I always suggest involve your A players in high level business conversations or decision making. Always ask for their feedback. It's always hilarious to me when I see just owners of cannabis stores making product buying decisions when your team players that are spending 40 hours on the floor a week really understand what your customers want and what they're asking for. So ask for feedback, involve them in those decisions. When you're sourcing new accessories, get all hands on deck. Everybody has a different idea of what they would want in an accessory. So having your team's input on that is super valuable. Include them in any conversations that you have, maybe with your OCS rep or any brand rep calls. I think that's super important. And then another and an obvious solution would be a competitive compensation package. So fair salary that's competitive within the market, and your business volume. Benefits is always really important. Vacation, an option to have a bonus could be also something to consider. And a flexible work schedule goes a long way. So, for example, if somebody has children or if they're in school, having some flexible scheduling accommodations is super imperative. Um, Another another thing I would say is very important and nobody ever remembers that is be vulnerable and ask for feedback. None of us are perfect. If you're asking your team for feedback on how you can improve and support them better, that does go a long way because they feel that they're heard and they're recognized. Potentially also giving positive recognition all the time. I was speaking at a panel at Lyft last week and we were chatting about bartender growth path. And I really truly believe this, that they are the MVPs in this industry and deserve to know that they're doing a great job. So that's super important in my eyes too. And feedback. Feedback is the breakfast of champions, I always say. So although delivering constructive feedback is really challenging and sometimes awkward, it's super imperative, and I find that motivated employees excel and are super grateful when you deliver feedback.
Awesome. And I'm hearing you say butt tending and butt tenders are the MVP, but also that some have found that it can be a repetitive job at times. Do you have any specific tips for really like engaging butt tenders, getting them excited about staying and wanting to continue on within the same store so you don't have turnover?
Yeah, that's a great question. Career path conversations is really important. Obviously, your bud tenders aren't speaking to all of the sales reps. They're not getting involved in conversations with the OCS. They may not understand the structure of the business or any of the legal parameters around running a retail store. So sitting down and really asking where they see themselves in a couple of years goes a long way. I know myself as a leader, having those conversations within the first 3 months really helps me dictate how I'm going to support them in the future. So, for example, they may say, "Oh, I met the Afro rep Tyler Patterson, and he was so amazing. I would consider being a rep in the future." Then, as a leader, I would say, "Okay, you know what? Maybe next time, like the Pure Sun Farms rep comes in, I'm going to go introduce this employee just to have a conversation with them." So, having these career path conversations that help support better leadership is super engaging and important, and could go a long way. Let the team members speak to the brand reps when they come in. I always find that the bud tenders have the best questions for these reps, that in turn are reiterated to your customers. So getting them involved in that dialogue is really helpful. Also, continuing education. As everyone knows, there's new products that hit the market all the time. So certain platforms like Leafly or Spiffy, or having LPs come in, licensed producers come in and do education sessions. That's super helpful as a continuous learning environment. And then the last and final thing that I would say is the most important is, if you can, always promote from within.
Awesome.
Okay, tips on leveraging local and industry partners to succeed. So, the saying "your network is your net worth" couldn't be more fitting, I say, in this industry. Cannabis consumers are slightly different from alcohol consumers in the sense that a lot of them I find really care about where their cannabis is coming from and the story behind who is selling it. So, retail shops could consider partnering with like-minded local businesses and selling brands that they resonate with and want to support, and getting creative with how to leverage each other on all of our social platforms.
Um, so there's a lot of different cannabis shops in the province. How do you suggest retail stores differentiate in terms of store experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first, if we're speaking to pop-ups and activations, you can bring a brand in to do an activation or a pop-up. We've had like screen printing on a T-shirt. We've had PAX come in and do engraving on the PAX Eras, which is a battery device. We've had beverage partners come in and do non-infused sampling. I think what's important for a business owner and leadership to remember is that this is prime real estate for these people. They don't have their own stores, so make sure that you're asking for something in return to giving them this space, especially if it's a high peak day like a Friday night or Saturday later afternoon. Ask for something in return, and it could be as simple as cross promoting on their social platforms or lunch for your team. I think that's a really important consideration if you are bringing these people in. Another thing is offering one-on-one educational sessions. If you have new consumers come in that are very new to cannabis and maybe need a little bit more time and support than a regular customer who's stopping by, you can offer one-on-one like bud tending, special education sessions for these people. We've done after hours private shopping even. Obviously your dispensary has to be closed before 11, so let's say you close at 9 but you're legally permitted in Ontario to sell to 11. You could do a private shopping event even and offer a discount to your most loyal customers or friends and family, or honestly anybody that you want to bring into your shop. Another thought could be, I mean, we're heading into the holidays, so organizing a charity event that's a walk that starts at your store and ends at your shop. Just doing community driven, engaging activities to differentiate yourselves is super important, I think, in my eyes.
You mentioned you've had 14 years retail experience. I need to know, have you done any funding events that you want to share with us?
Yeah, so many over the past couple years. I would say the most successful and engaging couple would be we made s'mores, like infused s'mores with the Legend chocolates for customers in store. Another time we did infused mocktails with the Tea God Ripple powder. And if you look on Tea God's website, they actually have the recipes made. So the team came by and dropped off the recipe cards, and we had like a bartender whip up the cocktails in a to-go cup for the customers. So the guests would pay for the Ripple, and then we would make the mocktail for free for them. That went over so well. And before we did this activation, we were not moving that product. So I think being able to really educate the customer on it and show how to infuse this powder into basically anything just went a long way. We did a pipe making workshop one time with a ceramic artist in Winnipeg. That went over very well. Obviously, it took a lot of coordination because it was a two-part series, but something creative like that could really resonate with your consumers. We also just a couple just demos of accessories at our higher price point is really helpful. So, for example, there's a auto grinder, which is like a handheld grinder that grinds and stuffs cones for you by Banana Brothers. I think it's retails for about $150. We had that on display, and we were filling cones for people, and we sold like a couple that day, which that specific item is kind of challenging to move. Also, there's this stunning glass hookah bong, which is a pretty expensive bong, but if you have it on display and people can see it in action, it's so much more enticing for somebody to purchase. We've done it with the Levo, which is a oil infusing machine. So having live demos of specific accessories works really well.
So brilliant from a marketing perspective to partner with people in the industry and in your area as well. Like, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering how you could even approach those people. Do you have any tips or things that have worked for you in terms of like connecting with people in the space to do an event together?
Yeah, certainly. I think first and foremost, step one would be start by making a list of local businesses that you and your team would like to collaborate with. Again, get everyone's feedback from your team. Having different people give inputs. Maybe they shop at different restaurants or they shop at different stores, eat at different restaurants. Having your entire team give inputs here is super critical. When selecting these specific partners, keep in mind location, brand alignment. Obviously, they need to be 19 plus, and I would make sure that you're approaching people that are realistically going to consider a partnership. For example, don't walk up to Nike and think that they're going to come do a partnership and collaboration with your dispensary. Identifying the second step, I would say, is identify who on your team is community driven and can be your community leader. So these individuals should be outspoken, connected, and creative. They should kind of have their finger on the pulse with what's going on in the city and in your area, and really leverage these people to kind of drive your community engagement. Then next step I would say is start by visiting this business and just ask to meet the manager or owner, see if they're around, introduce yourself as your local dispensary. And during that step, you can kind of find out if these people are cannabis friendly or not.
Um,
Yeah.
Anything else on this point?
Totally. After, I would say, sit back and come up with a team strategy for really what type of event you want to host. Is it them bringing in baked goods in your store? Is it you bringing discount cards to their store to give out to your customers? And compose an email together with a team and send it off to form this type of partnership with the team. I've seen actually examples. I forget what dispensary it was. I want to say it was Corey in Toronto. I could be wrong, but they did like a local market almost in front of the store where a ton of businesses were involved in this market, and all of them had little pop-up stations that offered discounts to all of their shops. And there was posters posted around Toronto, and they did a couple of them, which seemed to roll out super successfully.
I
Yeah.
would say these are amazing, amazing, helpful insights on how Ontario dispensary owners and any dispensary owner, honestly, can really succeed and really set themselves apart from the competition in your space. For anyone who is just joining, Brittany covered how to leverage loyalty programs to increase sales, and she talked about cost considerations and how legal works and how to promote those programs. We also covered why motivating employees matters, and Brittany went into how to do it, how to keep them, how to help them grow, and why it matters, as well as tips on leveraging local and industry partners to succeed. And she spoke about types of successful events, what you could promote at your events, ideas for events, how to connect with people, and some of the success that she's had in her 14 years in retail and in cannabis. And now we are going to open up the floor to anyone who has questions. So if you have any questions for Brittany on any of these things or anything in terms of cannabis retail, her experience, put them into the chat box. Any final words on this topic before we move into the questions, Brittany, so people can begin asking?
No, just thanks so much everybody for jumping on. I think what I touched on it at the beginning, but for everybody who's just joined, remember that the AGCO is rolling out changes in the Cannabis Act regarding the legislation around loyalty programs. So if you are considering to roll out a loyalty program, ensure that in your terms and conditions you include some type of verbiage such as the loyalty program is subject to change pending the legislation.
Awesome. We
Yeah.
actually are having some questions come in right now, and this one is in alignment with what you just mentioned.
Yep.
So the question is, what if I launch a loyalty program and the legislation changes? That's a good question.
Yep, that's exactly it. Obviously, it would really depend on what you have to change within your loyalty program. But in your terms and conditions, if you have that excerpt included that it is subject to change pending cannabis regulations, I think you should be fine. You could go as far as reiterating this to your customers when they are signing up for your loyalty program that this is a risk of signing up to the loyalty program, but explain to them that there'll always be an alternative that they'll receive if and when the legislation's amended.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much. Okay, another question from an audience member. We're a local micro grow and dispensary, and we want to promote local grows. We are not OSC, but farm gate. Can you give us any suggestions?
So sorry, you are a farm gate store. And you're local, and we want to promote local grows. Okay, so suggestions on how to promote local grows. Sorry, and farm gate. Actually, funny enough, I am opening a farm gate store right now, the Bull Rider store, and it is really challenging on how to promote. Obviously, Instagram and all social platforms. Cannabis is really challenging to speak to on any platform, and a lot of accounts we've seen over the last year have been deleted or deactivated and put into what we call Instagram jail, where you can't tag anybody, can't add captions, you can't uh, even like change your bio at all. So it is pretty challenging. I would suggest in your email database, start there. Potentially doing even tours and teaming up with other local businesses. Other local grows could be an option to do kind of like a cannabis bus tour. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas at the wall here, but I know myself. Once tourism opens up and we have Americans coming and visiting all the time, that is something that would definitely pop off. Considering if you do have a great customer database, considering a platform that sends out text message campaigns rather than email campaigns would be something I would look at. Also, we've seen a ton of success with click rates for those compared to emails.
Nice.
Yeah.
I feel like you're going to have a really, really good answer for this one. And we want to support independent and local and small shops. The question is, do you have any tips on how independent stores can compete with corporate?
That's a subject I speak about all the time, and I think, yeah, it's something that's really meaningful to me. We see these big box retailers coming in and slashing margins to unbeatable margins that they are for sure running at a loss, and it's really challenging for mom and pop shops that can't afford to drop their margins that low. So what I first and foremost suggest is educating your customers on your brand story and who you are. I think I talked about this a little bit before, but cannabis consumers do care about where their cannabis is coming from and who they're supporting. So having your team really educate your guests would be an amazing thing to consider. And also, you could consider doing some type of a price match. Obviously, you don't want to price match to something that's really low, but if you do have a neighboring dispensary that isn't too much below your margin, you may want to consider rolling out like a price matching strategy too. Another creative alternative is really bringing in some unique accessories and pushing education on your team to grow and learn about accessories, because traditionally margins on accessories are a lot higher. So if you do have an increase in accessory sales, then you can decrease the margins in a couple other cannabis SKUs if you need to keep up with your competitors.
This next question is again like aligned with that same topic of margins. So the question is, I can't afford to pay my bud tenders a high wage. What should I do?
Yeah, this is a question I get quite often also. So a common misconception is that remuneration doesn't necessarily always have to be compensation. If you have a highly motivated team member, additional knowledge, experience, opportunity, this can go a long way. So you could consider certain things like bringing them to a cannabis conference. We just had Lift and Co last weekend. There's Grow Up coming up in Niagara. Obviously, these are super inspiring. It's great networking opportunities. It's amazing learning. Only cost you a couple $100. That could be an alternative. Again, sort of what I mentioned before, have them take part on important calls, attend virtual workshops such as this one, any of the OCS product knowledge calls. Broccoli Magazine has a ton of really engaging webinars they put on. Kova, I know, does also. Organizing even grow tours is really awesome. I know a ton of the LPs love bringing out bud tenders to grow tours, so that can be an alternative. Lastly, I would want to say team incentives and bonuses. So you could run incentives for your team, like, for example, highest basket size, so average dollar per transaction, wins a free 3.5 at the end of the week. An alternative could be most Google reviews in a month wins a $100 gift card. The highest sales per labor hour for the month wins an accessory. And how you would do this was you would track in Kova what an individual's total sales were and divide them by the amount of hours that they were working for that month. And whoever comes up with the highest sales per labor hour could win a prize.
The marketing genius that you are sharing is like amazing. Another one too, and you have covered this in some capacity, but I didn't want to miss anything. So I have a store on my street that's running with extremely low margins. I'm a mom and pop shop that cannot afford to decrease our prices. how can I compete? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I sort of mentioned a couple before, but I think education is really key. Explaining your brand story. A lot of these retailers have the similar long-term goal as you would say, like Giant Tiger, McDermott Lumber. So unfortunately, the low margins aren't going to stay forever. They eventually will increase over time as different stores drop off. Being able to be competitive with pricing is obviously important, but dropping to a 12% margin isn't doable for any retailer at all. So bringing in accessories to that do have like I said, a higher margin, and having additional accessory sales so you can get competitive with some other SKUs could be an alternative. Um, and then the last thing I mentioned also was obviously price matching. It is a slippery slope to price match. However, if you do have a neighbor that isn't too much lower than you could consider having a price match policy.
Cool.
Yeah.
This is a fun question. So am I able to sell coffee, cookies, or other local snacks at my dispensary? Which is a great question in terms of when you were talking about those different events and partnerships.
Sadly, no. You cannot. What's great about Ontario is we can sell cannabis apparel as long as you can showcase it has some affiliation with cannabis in your brand. But you cannot sell any type of. You can't have a coffee machine there selling coffee when a customer walks in.
Marketing question.
Hmm.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on using Discord or Telegram rather than more mainstream social media platforms for customer communication?
Um, what is Discord?
I don't
And
know.
I'm gonna look it up really quickly. Oh, is that the voice over phone, instant message, and digital
Oh.
distribution platform? So video calls, text message, media, and files, private calls. So if I am thinking correctly, this is like a call that is sent to people. If I am right there, I personally wouldn't answer any of those specific phone calls because I get them every day from I don't know what number has my social insurance number that they've stolen. So potentially no for that. But what was the second one?
Telegram? I think
Telegram.
it's similar.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's more of a text message platform also. My only reservation here, and I super apologize if I'm not privy to this, it looks like it's something with Androids, is that it needs to be compatible and compliant with your POS software. So the great thing about Springbig, Alpine IQ is they're very, very familiar with cannabis regulations within each province. Federally, they've trialed and tested different options. They've worked with different cell phone providers for not getting blocked and flagged as cannabis affiliated. So I would always suggest to go with the vetted and experienced options rather than something that is brand new. But again, I'm always open to learning and trialing and testing new technology. So feel free to send anything my way. I'd love to try it out.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a really good point in terms of marketing and using cannabis compliant specific people, especially with loyalty programs and things like that. Someone mentioned Discord acts as a community platform where there can be group chats. So maybe it could be a community building thing. Again, legal, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And both platforms are closed group messaging platforms being utilized more by legacy market companies. We have a good convo going on in our chat here. Thanks for sharing, everyone, for sharing your knowledge. I have another marketing question for you. I have only a few hundred people in my database, and my staff tell me customers are hesitant to provide me with their information. What do you suggest? Great question.
Yeah, so that's a common response I get from any bud tenders is that people don't want to give their information. They're scared about being attached to any cannabis accounts. They just don't want anything to do with us. But it really is on your delivery and how you educate the customer on the benefits of giving them your information. So points that you could bring up is this tracks all of your purchases. There's over 1,000 SKUs on the market. I don't know who can remember everything that they've tried because I can't remember something I bought 2 weeks ago. So if there's a system to track what your purchases are in the past, that's just super helpful, especially holidays right around the corner. If you have somebody coming in to purchase you a gift, all of your recent purchases are on there, which would help inform the bud tender of what to suggest to you. If anything goes wrong, having a purchase history is very imperative. Let's say one of your vapes clogs because it is a CBD vape and winter's right around the corner and you left it in your pocket and sometimes CBD crystallizes. If you don't have any proof of purchase or tracking, it comes really challenging for a bud tender to look up your file and try to support you in some type of a resolution there. Another thing you could do and make sure you do is you ask confidently. I see Jackson on this call, and he was amazing at this. Literally, you just say, "Hey, what's your name? What's your first name, last name? I'm going to add you in here." And usually the people don't even think twice. If you let them know that they are going to be invited to sales or this is how we communicate events, most people want to know when they're going to get discounts on weed.
That's really wise. So informing them of like why you need it, how it helps them, and how it helps the business and the consumer.
Certainly.
Cool. Okay, I have two more questions. If anyone else wants to ask a question, we have 5 more minutes, so we might be able to fit it in. So pop it in the question answer. These are the questions I have for now, and they are both jumping back a little bit to the events and partnerships that you were speaking about in the third point. This one is, hey there, I work with retailers in BC and Alberta. In BC, it's prohibited to consume cannabis at a private licensed cannabis store. You mentioned being able to serve cannabis in Ontario retail locations. Does this abide by Ontario cannabis laws, or do you advise customers to consume their products off the property?
That is a great question, and a great area that I have spent hours grilling the AGCO on. So, Ontario Smoke Free Ontario law, you cannot smoke or vape in a building. However, the gray area is that an edible or a beverage isn't considered smoking, and so long as that individual isn't intoxicated, you are permitted with make, like, as long as you aren't giving to them and they're already intoxicated, you're permitted to do this after they've purchased it.
There's so many things to know and like so many nuances.
Yeah.
This is another one as well because I know that you did mention you can't sell other goods like cookies and etc. But the question is for partner collaborations, are retailers allowed to partner with local businesses that are not in the cannabis industry but local community leaders like a bakery or a coffee shop?
Partner, yes, it define partnership. You cannot sell their items in your store, but for example, if you wanted to offer discounts at each other's businesses, you could do something like that. So if you had a coffee shop beside you, you could offer the coffee shop customers 10% off at your shop, and vice versa.
Got it. Awesome. Amazing. We don't have any more questions, but I wanted to thank you so much for joining us and for going over how you can help Ontario dispensary owners succeed and stand out in the competitive ecosystem. And thank you for covering how to leverage loyalty programs to increase sales, why motivating employees matters and how to do it, and tips on leveraging local and industry partners to succeed. If anyone wants to get in contact with the KayaPush team or with Brittany, we have the contact information here, and we will be sending out the webinar replay to everyone very shortly. And thank you so much, Brittany, for joining us. That was amazing. I learned so much.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, everybody. Have an amazing rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.